Folks, hello. Welcome to the one, the only Talking Crit. Uh, my once a week work spouse is currently MIA. So Jim and I said, fuck it. We're going live. And we have.
And we did.
We did. Not
That's right.
nothing but Michael. Fuck you.
That's right.
Demonetized right from the beginning.
Wow.
Wow.
It's gonna be that kind of show. I
Yeah.
don't know. Do we talk about sniveling shit weasels, or do we wait to talk about sniveling shit weasels?
You know, I think sniveling shit weasels may actually fit right now.
I'm sorry. Are we going yay or nay?
That's a yay. That's a yay. No, that's a yay.
So let's talk sniveling shit weasels. So I was struck this week because I saw some sniveling shit weasel postings. And so what do I mean when I say sniveling shit weasels? You know, there are people that just Grima Wormtongue is a paragon of virtue next to these sorts of people, right? And I've been in the gaming, I've been gaming plus for 40 odd years, going to conventions serious conventions since 93. And I see a lot of people. I used to go to shops. I've said before, I've been to over 1,000 retail stores.
Yep.
I've been to conventions small, I've been to conventions medium, I've been to Gen Con. I've been going to Gen Con steadily now since 2010. Before that, I was every year for quite a while. But in the community, right, we have all sorts of flavors in the community. And I'm a big person for saying I welcome you to the community and I encourage you to have an open table. And I, you know, it's a tough week for the notion of diversity of thought. There's a lot of things going on in the universe. We're not going to touch that. We're just going to stick with sniveling shit weasels. But there are people in every hobby, and I do mean this, in every single hobby. And you know that I self-identify as model train curious. It's okay. You know, I'm a miniatures guy, and I love role playing, right? All these sort of worlds intersect. But there are people out there that just sniveling shit weasel. Like, what do I mean by this? You know, first of all, they have delusions of grandeur. I will be the first person to tell you I have no delusions of grandeur, right? I do this once a week. I was asked to come on the show. They haven't thrown me off yet. I'm loud at a podium and I auction a lot of things, but I certainly am not going to break my arm, pat myself on the back. But there are people whose self-importance, their notion of self-importance is fairly high. And Eric and I have been talking about some people who they ostensibly run YouTube channels where they talk about gaming, but they never talk about gaming. Invariably, it's rants on politics, it's rants on other things. You know, they make these sort of snide posts about, oh, well, you know, so-and-so almost apologized to me or something. These people are invariably have virtual spines. The internet has emboldened them. Whereas we used to, if you said something like this, when you were sitting around with your friends in the treehouse and you had a friend who said something weaselly, you punched him, right? You punched him in the arm and you were like, knock that shit off. There's Mike. But sniveling shit weasels are everywhere, right? And they're on the sides of things, and they're always poking, and they're always trying to get people to like. They're clickbait. They're nothing but clickbait. They're literally the virtual form of clickbait. They invariably have that like really awful goatee, and I should apologize for a couple of weeks. I was trying to grow a goatee, but they don't have a proper goatee, right? They have like the old coot goatee where some of it's going this way and some of it's going to Alaska, and all of it is just poorly maintained and smells like bad soup. And shit weasels
smells like
shit weasels are the kinds of guys they have an infinite number of sock puppet accounts. So they can be like thrown out of, you know, when they're thrown out of Tenkar's Tavern, they can come back with another one, only be thrown out again. And they revel in this, right? They sniveling shit weasels just revel in this kind of, if you don't pay any attention to them, they wither and die, which is why they say outlandish things like, I'm terminally ill, I don't feel well, I'm going to die. something bad is going to happen. Listen, I joke about the sweet meteor of death finally giving me a full good night's sleep at some point. It hasn't happened yet, but we cross our fingers. But really and truly, I was struck by after page, I saw a post from a sniveling shitweasel. And I said to myself, you know what? Like, we need to call this out, because it's just sniveling little shitweasels. If they had something to offer the community, their channel would be filled with great thoughts or personal thoughts on gaming, or the games they've run, or the games they've been in, or the conventions they've been to. But when all you're doing is just vainglorious dreck, I've got no time for that. I've got no time for it at all. And so I encourage you, when you see somebody and you're like, I'll bet that person fits the definition of sniveling shitweasel, just walk by it. Just don't get involved. They're like a glue trap, because once you interact with them, once you engage with them, you're stuck in and you can't get rid of the damn thing. And it's just miserable. Shitweasels. Sniveling shitweasels.
I feel terrible. I feel bad that Jim, I got in the middle of a Jim rant, and I don't really have any rants tonight. I'm actually feeling kind of calm. So kudos, Jim. I'm glad you got the rant. I got nothing, really, man. I got nothing.
I like, this is this great time of the year where you're stuck inside, so you're going through books, you're reading stuff. Some of you are lucky enough to be going to Dallas tomorrow for the game day. Some of you have just rolled out a page and had a great weekend. And really and truly, it's a new year, so like, put the crap aside. I have a couple of exams I'm studying for to knock out in the next few weeks, and I got one on Saturday. But this is where you try to work on things. This is where you try to be better. This is where you've come out of last year and you're like, okay, I survived. Miracle of miracles, I've beaten the actuaries. But really and truly, you're trying to get off to a good start in the next year, right? And what I noticed with this sort of flittance that came across my feed, as it were, I just thought, right, like, sniveling shitweasels can't be anything else but a sniveling shitweasel, right? They really, really can't. And that's unfortunate, but it's not my fault and it's not anybody else's fault. So when you see them, just walk by. Don't give them the attention they so desperately crave, because that's the only thing that keeps them going, right? Is they feel like they have.
I use this to keep the shitweasels at bay, Jim.
Oh, look at that! See,
it works.
They can't stand strong drink. I sense
some shitweasels, so I'm going to go ahead and just.
Wait. I'm offended, Mike. I'm offended.
Oh no!
Oh, you're offended. Well, how about can you hear this? If you can't hear it, I can turn it up for you.
Let's put it in stereo and turn it up, man. It's like Freedom Rock. It's like Freedom Rock.
Freedom Rock. What's Freedom Rock? Oh, I love that commercial. Man, what's Freedom Rock?
How can you not love the Freedom Rock commercial, right?
Oh,
I just don't understand that. So, come on, like, it's a new year. Can we just like not rant about WotC for once? Like, let's just give it a, I don't know what Ben Riggs.
We rant about. We don't have to rant about WotC, but can we? Look, I'm going to say I like a lot of what Ben Riggs writes, but dude, the last couple weeks he's on a clickbait.
Yeah,
jihad. He's on the jihad of all clickbaits, and it's so obvious. Ben, just come on, man. You are better. I'm going to say this. You're better than this. I hate to say it, but it's true. Ben's better than this. He doesn't need to. Hey, did you know that Gary Gygax said this 45 years ago? And he said this. And then the click, and of course, the click start, click. Yeah.
But
click,
Mike, here's the secret about people that do shit like that. They aren't better than that.
Here's the deal. Like, I'm going to save everybody time. If you've ever thought to yourself, I wonder if Gary ever got up to anything. like, here's the deal. Ernie made an unbelievable post on Facebook that's public, that you can read, that makes it abundantly clear what Ernie and Gary, his father, got up to when they were out west. And if you are morbidly interested in these sorts of things, you can go peruse what is truly an epic document where Ernie lays his soul bare and says, I did all of these things and they weren't good. And I want to talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
And he includes some stuff involving his dad, but really and truly, like, I just don't have time for this because number one, Gary's dead, right?
Yeah.
Don't talk ill of the dead. There's no point. Number two, Ernie has a Constitution 1900, man. That dude just keeps rolling hundreds every time Death walks up with the sickle and the hourglass and is like, hey, hey, hey. And Ernie's like, nope, not going yet. Not gonna happen. And he keeps surviving, right? So like just relax. And I don't know. I don't have Ben's number. I'd call him. I call him live now just to give him. but I don't know why. But just
You know what? I tell you what. You know look. He wants to be a serious seminar historian guy, which is great. You know what? You don't see serious historian guys like John Peterson doing. You don't see John Peterson on the internet doing clickbait because you know why? Because John Peterson doesn't need that shit.
Right.
He's
don't
a
have to
legit
do
scholar
clickbait.
who does legit scholarly work, and he doesn't need that. And I would just say, Ben, you don't need this. This was the dumbest. Last week was the dumbest week in history because it was like, this is the week I'm going to show you what a terrible human being Gary Gygax was. And all he did was regurgitate 45-year-old. We know, yes, we know that. Yes, we know that. And just annoy people. And it just makes me think maybe this was meant honestly, but it just puts me in the mind that he was clickbait. It was a clickbait scheme. And look, we've talked to Professor DM, you know, and Garrick's talked to Professor DM. Professor DM's done videos on this. If you don't do clickbait, you don't get the moolah. You don't. It's all about clickbait now. And Professor DM, Eric, didn't he say a while back that he does at least one clickbait video a month just so he can get the view?
Yeah.
I mean, and so that, but that, but if you want to be taken seriously in the hobby, you don't do that. And I'm not saying I'm not saying anything against Professor DM, love his stuff, but he's very honest and upfront about what he's doing. I'm doing.
And the thing is, and listen, one of the great things about Paige, and I'm going to give Ron huge props for this. He brought together a lot of the YouTubers as special guests. So I got to meet a lot of the folks that I watched the videos of and went, hey, there's Stephen Glicker. Holy shit. From Roll for Combat. But Dan, we were talking about this, and the whole thing is, as all the YouTubers who actually have the subscriber numbers that I have, that and actually make money off this, is that they've seen the algorithm change. You know, YouTube does what it does behind the scenes, and it encourages clickbait.
Sure.
And if you are
encourages outrage, encourages outrage, because you know why, Eric? Well, you probably can tell why, but I'm interrupting anyway. Yeah. It's because it's engagement, right? Yeah. It's engagement. And so, they don't care how that engagement is.
You know what? So engagement is also like slipping someone $20 behind the truck stop for a handy, but that's just wrong.
$20, dude. You have not done a handy lately. It is, dude. $20.
Inflation, sir. Inflation.
I've just heard this. Now I've just heard this. I don't know this for certain.
But you know, again, I'm tired of. I'm just tired of all this. I'm tired of all this like manufactured drama. I'm. You know, again, you're exactly right. We're turning over the rocks that have been turned over so many times. They're round now. There's no, you know, it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. This is like the sniveling shit weasels. The sniveling shit weasels never actually confront somebody. Instead, they lurk at the periphery and say, ha 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 ha. I was indirectly mentioned, but not by name. And you're like, oh, buddy, you know what? I'm just desperate.
I know you really meant me when you said, I apologize.
I sensed permutations in the force, and I knew that I was the person. Give me a break.
I answered one of his things that said, can you believe that Gary said this? And I said, so like, yeah, 45 years ago, we all know it, man. And he said, well, some people that were only born 30 years ago don't know it. But is it that important that it has to be brought up again? I mean, is it pertinent to what's going on now? No, he was using this. This was his week-long thing to excuse why WotC had to have warning labels on the front of their stuff saying that the people who did this hobby before were miserable human beings. So he was supporting that, saying, look, this is why they had to do it, because they were truly miserable human beings, because Gary said this 45 years ago. And it's just, it doesn't, I don't know that it resonates with anybody that's 30 years or under, does it? Do they care about that? They're playing 5th edition. They're having a great time. They don't care what these 3 old farts here are doing.
They
They
don't
care what
even
anybody's
know
saying.
who
And
they
sure
are.
as hell don't care. No, they don't care what Gary Gygax said 45 years ago. Nobody cares. It's just the clickbait weasels. I'm gonna start calling them that, Jim. That's a good one. Clickbait weasels that say, "Ooh, if I cover one of any dozen predictable subjects, I'm gonna definitely get X amount of hits." So, I haven't hit my algorithm this week. What can I talk about? I know.
Dude,
They definitely knew that
go to the truck stop and hand out $20 bills and save us all the time. Like, seriously, I got nothing, man.
I know. We'll talk about how Tolkien, his works were stand-ins for African Americans, and then of course they get 500 clicks because everybody wants to bitch, And I'm with you, Jim. Don't give him oxygen, please. Just don't give these people oxygen.
I'm not friends with him. I'm not friends with him. I think I looked him up on Facebook. I think his profile looks like it came from the Preppy Handbook right now. Like there's like a vibe going that. I'm not friends with him. I checked, and that's okay. Like he's got everything on his feed public, but I'm good, right? I'm good.
If you want to point, look, if I understand the need of people to point and laugh and move on, though. Do not, whatever you do, like you said, Jim's right. Do not get into long, protracted arguments with these people because it's like you're arguing with AI. There's no point. Nobody's minds are changed. Nothing's going to happen. You're just giving him oxygen to keep feeding on this and go. Next time he goes, oh, that one time I posted about how Tolkien was a racist, I got 5,000 hits. Let's do it again this week. Whoa.
Well, if you argue with them, they're waiting for that gotcha. They're waiting for the moment that you say something that can be taken out of context and then go, well, Jim Kitchen said, yeah, there's a little piece and there's a larger piece.
There's legions of video for me at Gen Con saying things that trust me, I'm good. I mean, really and truly, it's not like I hold back here a lot. And
true.
And
it's just it's unneeded, it's unnecessary, it's silly. I mean, every degrading word you want to say.
I think it's childish, right?
Yeah, it's childish.
It's like 7th grade gossipy, nasty, mean girls.
Once again, I know some people here might not like him. I have a lot of respect for John Peterson, and I'm talking about, I mean, not just stuff about him, behind the scenes stuff he's done for the hobby. And you know what he does? And he doesn't get on there and do clickbait slap fights because he is on a higher level. He is doing research. He's writing books. He's doing things that, that all of us wish we had the time and the effort and the stick to us to do. And so he doesn't need that kind of shit. Right. And that's why he's a respected scholar. That's why other people are desperately trying to follow in his footsteps, but not just quite getting there because they don't understand the concept. They understand the concept of scholarly posting versus, I'm going to be the video equivalent of somebody throwing chairs at each other on television. So yeah, like I said, I'll stop in sometimes to point and laugh and move on. I do not get in protracted arguments. Look, and most of the time, what's the argument? I mean, Gary did say those things. It's just that, are they pertinent now 45, 50 years later? No, they're absolutely not pertinent now. The game has totally changed now. It's not the same thing.
The reality is my grandparents were probably saying similar things back then, as were yours, as was most of what annoys me, all right? And I'm not trying to step into the politics world, but we're always told you have to appreciate and treat other cultures as equals to your own, right? But we don't treat our own past culture as an equal culture. No, we condemn it, and it can't defend itself. And that, to me, is what that really annoys the shit out of me. But whatever.
I would say this, right? I don't know if anybody watching this has ever read family documents, things that have been passed down their family from 100 years ago, 150 years ago. So my great grandmother left her home and got engaged and left her home to begin her married life. And when she left, she had like a blank book that all of the people in her town that were her friends signed. and it's a very sweet little book with all these inscriptions of people wishing her well in her marriage and people talking about how they're going to miss her and so on and so forth. But the language is so remarkably different from anything that you and I or anybody else speaks today that reading it is difficult. The handwriting is difficult to decipher. And again, this is just 5 generations away from where we are.
Yep.
And so language is fluid, and meanings and interpretations change. And having been an American that lived in Canada, having been an American who was in the UK, I can tell you that the English spoken in Canada and the English spoken in the US and so on and so forth, these are wildly different languages. They have a root, they have a common cause, but there is so much variation and change. And truthfully, when Gary was writing some of this stuff, it's not a big surprise to see that he might have had too much to drink. He might be doing something else. He said things that, whatever, who cares, right? Really and truly, who cares? But to people like Ben, have at it, buddy. Clickbait away. Because the greatest thing about the internet is I can simply close the window and walk away, and you get nothing from me. Nothing.
There doesn't need to be a gotcha. I was just talking to the guy up here, Victory, that if you like 5e, great. Just play 5e. Everybody, it's the most played, most, sold game of D&D ever. You don't need gotchas to make sure you get well. Not only are we the most sold ever, but we're also morally superior because we don't. Well, you're not morally superior because there's several people that have worked for your company that have, So there's no gotcha. There's just no need for the gotcha. Just say, I like to play this kind of D&D, and I'm going to play this kind of D&D. And you don't have to bother with, well, if I'm going to play my kind of D&D, I'm going to put down that kind of D&D because I always talk about this. Call of Cthulhu is great because they're on their 7th edition now, and they're pretty much interchangeable except for a few years ago when they switched from the way that they switched to pure percentage dice rather than that they used to calculate the abilities a little different. But other than that, you could pick up any edition of Call of Cthulhu if you know one edition and play it. And you know what they don't have? They don't have edition wars for Call of Cthulhu. There's nobody out there going, I have the hardback 3rd edition rules, and that's where I draw the line, you MFers that play 4th edition and more. No, the only slight issue there is
Sandy Peterson will smite you. He will smite you.
7th edition is sufficiently different. Like I said, it uses all percentiles, whereas before, like your Constitution strength was calculated by 3 dice 6. It was a D&Dism, and they just decided with 7th edition, let's just do all percentage dice. That's the only difference. You can pick up any Call of Cthulhu, and they don't have edition wars. They don't care. There's no moral superiority over playing 1st edition than there is, playing 7th edition. They just play instead of playing. And a lot of that's because of D&D's success, right? When you breed success, you also breed a bunch of other weird shit that comes along. And that's what's happened with D&D is that, then now it's all about, tribalism, but it's not just tribalism like, well, we play D&D and you play Tunnels and Trolls, so you suck. No, it's tribalism like, well, I only play 3.5. If you play before that, you're a barbarian. And if you play something after that, I don't know what you are. You're terrible. It's just it's a waste of time, folks. Be having a good time instead. Eric, how was Paige? Tell us about Paige.
That came out of left field. Actually, Paige was a lot of fun. There were things that, here, I'll start with things that could work better. I already made these suggestions on a survey. The hotel shuttle to the venue was supposed to be a lot more frequently, but apparently it was once per hour, which required me, when Rach stood behind to, watch the Women in Gaming seminar, and I was running a game. I had to take a 10-minute break to tell my guys, take an extended potty break. I got to go pick up my wife and bring her back here, which, again, something that I think the hotel overpromised and then underprovided. And the venue food, while there was venue food, I felt like I was paying. Listen, Gamehold had, food at the venue that was, not New York City prices, but whatever. But
Yeah.
I was paying for two pretzels and 2 bottles of soda, $19.
That's convention center prices, though.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah, that's a sporting
convention
event.
center prices are pretty. Yeah, they're pretty.
Yeah, that's sporting event prices.
Yeah.
The seminar, there were 2 seminar areas. The problem is the seminar areas are only blocked out by curtains. So there's a lot of bleed over.
Yeah, noisy. Yeah.
So we had technical issues during my seminar where the mic crapped out. Thankfully, listen, I'm a retired cop. I'm used to projecting my voice. My 2 co-hosts were experienced at projecting their voices. We compensated. It went very well. Now, great things. The cheesesteak dinner was awesome because you sat with whoever. So you got to make friends. You got to meet people. It wasn't like people were stuck sitting with, this designated seating. No, it was get your own seat, get up and get food. Very relaxed. And as Ron said, he does that on the first night because there's very little on the schedule, and it allows all the special guests and those that wanted to meet special guests an opportunity to socialize. That was when I got to speak with Kelsey and Bob Worldbuilder, Dan Barron. I can't remember his full title, but I got to meet a couple of the YouTubers then. And then Kelsey got sick with Concrud. But it was a great atmosphere. The socialization was awesome. The gaming areas, the acoustics wasn't bad. I was surprised by that. And vending on Friday, I did my round, talked to those that I knew. I know Joe Block was saying that Friday was really good, and he was expecting a better Saturday. And Saturday was killer. Every vendor I spoke to said that Saturday was killer, like Jim was saying earlier in the show. The weather probably made Sunday end a lot sooner for a lot of people, but that's your risk with a winter convention, right? That's the roll of the dice.
I think it's, from everything I heard, and I talked to somebody for about an hour yesterday who had been at Page and was there all weekend. Mm-hmm. It struck me as they made some very important notes. Number one is that this is a show that 90-some% of the people attending it don't go to Midwest shows. They don't go to Gen Con, they don't go to GaryCon, they don't go to Gamehold Con, they don't go to North Texas, you name it. They don't go Midwest shows. This is a Northeast crowd, primarily Philadelphia area / pick up whichever you want from New York, New Jersey, Delaware, whatever. But that it really was a Northeast show. Number two, like all shows in January, right? Everybody's blown their holiday time, and you can have the show 3 days, 4 days, Pages 3 days. You can have the show, but most of the attendees are going to show up on Saturday. And I have no idea what the proportion of Saturday only badges was to folks going for all of it, but the people I spoke to said literally on Friday that it was ghost town, that you could walk around and walk to the front and you're just like, okay, there are people here because I don't see them. But on Saturday, it was absolutely packed, and Saturday was just crazy. Now, the person that I talked to said that sales-wise, their booth, home run, absolute home run, to the point there's no question. They're not only going to be back next year, but batten down the hatches, because one of the things they said, and this is very true, the preponderance of cons in the Midwest, this is a market very, 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 very well served. But this person had people come into the booth who had never heard of the line, never heard of the product line, had no clue what any of it was. Spend. And they said something very, very interesting, which I thought was a good observation. When times are tough, when people are in an economic downturn, he said over the last few years, what he's noticed is people pay cash at conventions. because when you're out of cash, you're out of cash.
Yep.
He says, the last 2 or 3 years at conventions, it's been 70% of the people who pay with cash, and about 30% are paying with credit cards. And he said the striking thing this weekend at Page was everybody was paying with card and letting it roll and put that in my order and I'll take that and I'll take that, and about 30% of it was cash. And he said that was a pretty eye-opening for him. And so that's, I think, a part of the environment. I don't think that's something specific with Page, but hearing that, I was just like, well, that's kind of neat here.
Mm-hmm.
But they had good success at Page, and so I think we'll see how it translates for other people.
I would bring up a couple of things, and I'm going to probably call Ron the next week or so. But a couple of things, people, if you went there, there's nothing better you can do than to fill out a form and say, hey, here's what I liked and didn't like about your convention. I will say, as somebody runs a convention, that is essential to how we run a convention, Gary and I. If somebody doesn't tell us something doesn't work, we don't know usually. We're too busy to run the con. So if you have something that you thought was great, if you have something you thought sucked, let Ron know, because that's the only way it'll change for the better or worse. And maybe it can't change. Maybe he'll just like the food thing. Hey, we're just going to do this because that's what we have to do. We can't have food trucks, blah, blah. I mean, but letting him know, it doesn't hurt to seethe in silence. Just say, well, I hated this one thing.
Yes.
No, let him know. And the other thing I was going to say, Jim, about what you said about the money, is that when I worked at a record store on and off, because I love music. I'm a gigantic music file. And so in the 80s and the 90s, I worked on and off in music stores. And one thing, no matter how the economy was, we always did boffo business on Christmas. And my boss said one time, which is very, very, makes a lot of sense. It's very wise. People always have $15 for a CD. This is something they can always buy. And I think the same thing, I think our industry in a lot of ways, at least at conventions, has been very economy proof. Because if you go to a convention, you're always going to drop some, if nothing else, you'll buy a new set of dice, or you'll buy a couple of books that came out. You may not spend a lot of money, but you'll spend $20, spend $25, whatever.
Yep.
And so I think that's good. That's good for the economy, but good for the convention too, that people are willing to go there. And, the worst convention that you want to, or the convention you don't want to go to, the worst thing, and I've worked some of these conventions, is when they're just circling like sharks and nobody's spending a cent. And you're just like, Jesus, somebody just stay at my booth and talk to me. I'll just buy something. It could be a $5, beat up UK1 module. I don't care. Just buy the dang thing, because I need to break this. Something needs to go. This dam needs to break. And so that's good that people were spending money there. That's great. That's great for Ron and all the vendors at the con. And like I said, I'll probably talk to Ron at some point, because I noticed a few things just looking online, talking to people, that I would have, helpful suggestions that, and I don't know if he can change them or not, but it's just, it doesn't hurt to say, hey, here's what I liked about your con. And believe me, as a con runner, you love to see stuff like it. It makes you feel like, okay, I did something worthwhile, because you're not doing it for the money, Jim. You're not.
No.
As you know, you're not doing this for the money. You either love this. Gary and I just love it. And if we didn't love it, we wouldn't do it, because we ain't making any money. We're not making bank off this at all.
You're not going to retire Scrooge McDuck monies from running a show.
Unless this drawer over here full of old convention bags and dice bags is worth a lot of money someday, then I might go. Until somebody wants a 2012, backpack, I'm pretty much SOL on that. So.
Well, and come on, right? There are different kinds of shows, and Page is in its second year. Page is growing leaps and bounds, and it's delivering the experience that people want, and it's also hitting all the right notes. Mm-hmm. It is a show in January. It's always going to have to deal with the weather.
Yeah.
And that's just, as long as the show is in January, that's what it is.
You have to lean into it. You got to lean into it. Yeah.
And that's where you just lean into it and say, okay, fine, right? Screw it.
We're going to have issues. Sometimes we're going to have issues. Hey.
Well, I got to say, the volunteer staff, they were excellent. They were everywhere. They were knowledgeable. I've been at conventions. North Texas is like an exception, because North Texas has had the same volunteer staff, the same core staff for years. But for a convention that's only in its second year, had to have your staff all on point. Whenever I had not even an issue, just a question, they were, and you saw them everywhere. So huge props for that. And I believe the attendance numbers as of, I don't know, midday Saturday was over 1,700. So I don't even know about the walk-ups for Sunday. But I know next year, like this year, they had about 35% of the total venue. Next year, they're going to have 100%. So there's going to be a lot more.
It'll help a lot.
It's going to be a lot more space.
Yeah. It'll help a lot because that's one of your main things you look at. Look, Game Hole was the same way until they expanded to have the whole convention center. When you're sharing space, it's never good. The same thing in North Texas. We have the whole hotel now. We used to only have part of the hotel. You never want to share space like that. It doesn't look great, and it makes you realize that because you can always use more space. You're never going to say, man, we got too much space here. We got way too much space. No, you never say that. You're always saying, God, we could right now in North Texas, we could use more space. We're using every single piece of space in the hotel now, and I don't want to have to leave. So, we're just trying to figure out. Gary had some great ideas last year. One was moving the vendor hall, which helped out quite a bit. But, we're landlocked now. This is how much space we have, and we can do this X number comfortably. And then after that, but
there's nothing wrong. I mean, then you get to a crossroads, right? Do you want to preserve the experience you have, or do you want to embark down a different path and grow the show and go through different pains? And Games Day, the very first Games Day in Baltimore was at the Tall Cedars Men's Lodge in Towson, Maryland, and was very small, but it eventually grew into filling the Baltimore Convention Center. And we grew our space in the Baltimore Convention Center. And it goes from how many people do we want? 200 tickets, 250 tickets, 1,000 tickets, 1,500 tickets. But that growth carries with it a lot of responsibility and a lot of change. And I can see both sides of it. I like the North Texas model where you guys have capped the attendance and said, this is it. Like we're not putting any more, this is as big as the tent gets. If the demand is so crushing and the tickets sell out, in the first day they're on sale, then you might say, maybe we need to think about something. Maybe we need to think about a different venue. And
you're right, Joe, because we're in a good spot now. Last year we sold out in April, which is way earlier than we did. Yep. We're on track to maybe about the same time. I always look at, and we talk about this a lot. Gary Kahn is stuck in limbo. Do we get bigger and move, or do we stay here, but we're jam packed to the rafters full? And that's a tough situation to be in. I know as for running a con when you're like, do we pull the trigger and then lose the? Look, we didn't want to leave the Marriott by the airport. It was. Everybody still talks about that venue. Great venue, lots of restaurants nearby. It was really easy to get to. It was a great venue, but we had outgrown it. We had outgrown it and had to move on. And yes, there's not a lot. That's why we have food trucks, because there's no food anywhere nearby.
Yep.
It's a food desert, and there's no shuttles that take you places. But it's a trade-off. It's a trade-off because we wanted to get bigger, and the Westin loves us. They do lots of things for us. The game day this weekend, that's something that they're like, heck yeah, we'd love to have you guys here. Although I believe Gary said we're sharing the hotel with a biker convention, so that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be awesome. I'm sorry I'm missing that.
That's going to be interesting. So it should be fun. Maybe we can get some of those bikers to roll some dice with us. Who knows?
And the bar scene should be
diverse. The word you're looking for is diverse.
I'm looking forward to it also. Yes. So that should be interesting. No, but you have to make that decision, and you decide which you are, and look at Game Hole Con. I think Alex has a plan for that, and last year, it was well publicized. Alex posted about himself that they tried to stick him up for more money. Okay, more money, buddy, and he said, "No, let's see how Milwaukee's doing," and they're like, "Oh, you would really go to Milwaukee? Oh, how about if we grovel for a little while and we'll give you everything you wanted? So I think he has a plan. The plan is to, be the biggest convention there in Madison, to where he's going to be the gaming convention in Madison, or if not, the whole state of Wisconsin. I don't know what Gary Kahn's plan is. I love Luke and I like everybody there. I just don't. I see so many different theories about what might happen. And I hear some person say this. I just don't know. I don't know what they want to be. I look at like EggCon this summer. That's run by Heidi and Eric. I think they know what they want to be right now. I think they're kind of okay. We're going to be this mid-size. We're going to be a celebration of all things, Gary, and we're going to be in Lake Geneva. We don't have to get gigantically big. We're going to be this big and we'll be fine. So, your identity is very important. What you choose as your identity for a con is very important. And by the way, fans can sniff out when you're not authentic. When you say that we want to be this kind of con and you're not, they know, that they can sniff that out. And I know when I walk into a con that I walked into cons before that were supposedly RPG cons. And I'm walking in, and it's some con I've never been to before, like a local con. We're going to do RPGs. I walk in, there's magic cards, and there's Warhammer everywhere. And I'm like,
if I walk in and if I walk in and the overwhelming smell of men enjoying themselves is what I get hit with when I walk through the door, number one, your venue is incapable of keeping up with the crowd, and number two is that this is not. Yes, it's not going to happen. I'm done with poorly ventilated, lack of air conditioning, lack of heating, lack of body odor, or lack
Come
of
on, man. The
odor.
80s, the 70s and 80s were wonderful, dude. How dare you say that? But that's true.
Sure.
That was the 70s
I
and
look
80s.
forward to Ben Riggs's exponential documentary on all things smellation.
Why does he do a video on ass crack smell? Because that will chase me out of any venue. And that, believe me, that's that will chase me out of a venue in a second. But that we laugh about that now. We laugh about it, but that was a real problem, wasn't it, guys? Back in our heydays in the 70s and 90s, that was a problem.
I don't need another episode of Unwashed Gamers on Unwashed Gamers. I just don't. Right? Just too much funk. Keep it away from me. I don't need this.
Gamer. People have been. It's become such an issue. It's almost a cliche. And I will say that I don't seem to have that problem anymore when I walk into a con. It seems like it's more fresh and they smell good, and
I mean, come on, they figured out how to wash elephants at the zoo. We should be able to set up like an external hose down area if you're that bad. Right?
I can't get my dice wet. Come on.
I'm gonna put a sponge on a stick, and we're
you
gonna
can figure out what soap does. If you can figure out how your dice can calculate something in top secret first edition, you can learn how to use soap. It's not that difficult.
I mean, every venue has a bathroom, right? You could take the historic Polish bath, I guess.
Yes.
But one thing I forgot to mention is that on Sunday, I hit the last few booths that I had failed to hit on Saturday. Because on Saturday, I wanted to hit the the Gagsland booth. Heidi and Eric, their booth, but there was always a crowd of people around it. So Sunday, got a chance to actually, get their booth, and there was nothing left. They sold out of everything they came with.
Crazy.
And that was before noon on Sunday.
Oh.
Before noon on Sunday. They were like, next year they're driving, so they can take more stuff with them.
That's great. That is a healthy con. If you do that, because look, one of the things that you want to do is keep your vendors happy. I'm not going to name this con to avoid embarrassment, but there's a con that I know of that they regularly the vendors don't score. They just don't make enough money, and so their vendor turnover it just keeps tripling over. Yep. And that's not good for your con, because the vendors on the way out are talking to the guys on the way in saying, hey, don't work blank con because you don't make your money back. It's not any good. Right. You got to have your vendors happy. If your vendors are happy, you're going to do well. And that's one thing North Texas does well. And that's not one thing that Page apparently does well too. So that's good for them. I'm glad.
Well, I think it's a mix of three things. Number one, I think Page is a starved market, right? Page is hitting a starving market, and it's within an easily, you have people within an hour and a half, 2 hours that can get to page fairly easily from big metro areas. So that's great. I think I can think of two different shows that have two different problems. There's a show that is constantly raising the vendor hall space, and keeps pushing the ceiling and keeps raising it, and they get turnover, where, again, you come for a year or 2 years or 3 years, and if you can't cover your booth costs, why are you going back? And
Sure, absolutely.
If your booth can't pay for your presence, it's not a show to be at. Then the other is, you got to have happy vendors, right? They've got to be able to feel like they can come, they can set up, they can make enough money. They're going to cover their room and travel costs and make money beyond that. And if they can't do that, that's a problem. I think big shows, the momentum of a big show, and I will say something larger than 1,500, right? Let's say that. So big shows get momentum going in one direction, where they're growing and they're growing and they're growing. And I think it's a natural reflex to say, well, my vendor space costs me X, and if I divide that by the amount of booth space, this is what it should be, and blah, blah, blah. And I understand that. But it's also, frankly, I think, a little bit of a loss leader, because you want to have that as a destination for people to come and spend money, and you should be willing to eat some of the cost. If the goal is to turn all of it into an in the black profit situation, I think that's a problem. I think the smaller the show, the more reasonable. I mean, if you can get people to come and set up an elaborate booth, cut them a deal, like make them a deal. And I think that gets lost on people when their show is successful. So,
well, like I said, I was pleasantly surprised that for a second-year con, the cons were as minimal as they were. Especially for the size, I got to say, the staff did a great job. I can't say enough. Even when our mic crapped out during the summer, they were working so hard to get that damn piece of crap to work properly. It was like, that just happens. That isn't even a con to me. That's just, if you're going to a convention and you're relying upon technology, there's a good chance it's going to screw up.
Count on it to screw up. Now, I mean, really and truly, I have set up and been at so many different shows where the internet never works the way it's supposed to. You're like just give up on it. Because I think it's better than it used to be, but there's still foibles, there's still problems. You are still rolling with the punches of what you have to deal with. Now conventions at hotels for the most part have a robust enough wireless network that you can, your vendors can get on the internet, and most are using Tile or whatnot to run credit card transactions. And if the worst case scenario is they can't get on the hotel internet, or they can't afford to, where the hotel is going to charge them like $150 a day or something for that kind of the bandwidth they need, just pick up your phone and turn it into a hotspot and go from there. But,
I got to say, there were no dead spots at the hotel nor at the venue itself with my phone. I've again been to conventions where, it's like, all right, well, my 5G is now 4G. No, I've had where it's like, it's like no G. It's like nothing, no dead spots. So if you were a vendor, you were probably doing pretty well when it came to like the internet you brought with you. And come on, we all got a cell phone with at least minimal data, right? That's what it's there for.
Well, in theory, yes.
In theory. So I gotta say, Ron, in response to the snow, Ron opened the vending hall, I believe, an hour earlier on Sunday, and allowed vendors to close down 2 hours earlier than initially planned.
That's good. Yeah, that's good.
You got to be flexible for this stuff, and that was a good decision. I got home We left shortly after 12 after making our last rounds. We left shortly after 12, got home a little bit around, I don't know, 2:30 or so. We didn't get, it was rain the whole way there, back to New York. I got hit with sleet maybe a quarter mile from the house. So I really was lucky I escaped the worst of the bad weather. But if I had left 2 hours later, it could have been nasty. So it all worked out well.
Let's see. What other interesting news of the weird do we have this week? Trying to think.
Well, I wanted to ask you something about Paige, Eric.
Yeah.
So, how many people did you have in your autograph line?
Oh, you asshole! You asshole! You big asshole!
The line was out the door, right? I mean, it was out the door.
Listen, I had a half-hour slot, and about 15 minutes into my slot, people started lining up for the slot following me.
Ouch!
I don't blame them. It was somebody who's appeared on this show when we were at North Texas dancing behind us.
Okay, a famous person. In other words,
a famous person.
So it has skins on the wall. Yes.
So the line was forming about 15 minutes before. I think we had 2 people actually come for signatures, both of whom mostly watched Gamers Health. So they wanted pictures with me and Rach, which was awesome. But nobody really wanted my signature until later. Sunday, I was signing stuff when I was just walking around. But no, that signature booth deal. I mean, and listen, my advice to anybody who goes to conventions: if you want the signature of a personality, creator, or whatever, go up to them politely and say, "Hey, Bad Mike, Jim, Tenkar, do you got a second? I can I grab you in my autograph book or on your Swords and Wizardry Light copy? We'll be happy to do it. You don't need the booth time to get it.
Don't be a sniveling shit weasel and stand near somebody and then claim later that you almost had an interaction with them.
Ouch!
Because you didn't. You just stood there passively hiding.
Too soon, but accurate. Accurate though.
Jesus.
So I think the idea of the autograph booth is a good one because it was done to very good effect at Gary Con. I know being at Gary Con, because sometimes those guys are hard to find. And if you have to say, look, this is 1 hour when Arrow Otis is going to be in this spot, you appreciate that because like, cool, I get all my Arrow Otis stuff together. I can go up there, have it signed, it's done. Because I know that I've been to past Gary Cons and I looked for Arrow Otis and I saw him running by one time and like the guy's being busy. But if you make these guys sit for 1 hour, that's great. I would just question Ron's attention to detail in terms of how many people he thought Eric was going to pile up there at the door, signing their biceps or something.
Mike, I'm going to put that in perspective for you. Do you know who else had time in the booth?
Who?
Mike Neistel.
Was he signing his? Remember, he did those Kickstarters. He was signing his Kickstarters. He did. Wait, hold on, never mind.
Okay, all right. Let's just segue to a question we got. Can you guys talk a bit about doing live episodes from cons? So let's talk a little bit about this. So I'm trying to save us from that topic. So one of the things that's perilous about doing these sort of live shows is you really are dependent on both the internet connection and the quality of the cameras that you have, multiple cameras, as far as capturing interactions and so on. North Texas is a bit of fire, right? Because we've usually camped out where people can walk in and walk out. I very infamously wandered in and sat down and told my Meeting Gary story a few years ago at my first North Texas. It's one of those things where you need to balance what you're trying to do. Are you trying to interview somebody? Are you trying to actually do a proper show? And if that's the case, you probably need to be off to the side somewhere and you need to be away from the traffic flow. If, on the other hand, you're playing the North Texas drinking game or the Talking Crit drinking game, and you're encouraging multiple and new participants, well, hold on to your hats, batten down the hatches, set up somewhere in public, and go. I think Gary Oliver has the right spin on this. He has a dedicated 5G hub from Verizon or somebody else that he uses for these sorts of things,
Yeah.
and that is not dependent on the network of the hotel or anywhere else. And I think that is just the ideal solution. Now, we were running 2 cameras off of that at North Texas this past year. We didn't really have any problems. I think most of our problems were we were listing to port simply because we had too much to drink.
No, Jim, I'm gonna say, Jim, you're right, and I would add. So you made a good point about what kind of show you want to have, because I know we do North Texas. We're just like, look, we're not going to plan anything. This is unplanned. Whoever walks by, we're grabbing it. I would say that's the way to go.
But we're grabbing them in a consensual way.
Yeah, very consensual. Yes. But yeah, I see a lot of conventions where they try to do a regular show at the convention, and it just doesn't work. And everybody's out of sorts. The guy doing the show is off his usual ground. He's not with it. Sometimes it's too loud. Sometimes the light isn't good. Sometimes it's noise. You have this. So my suggestion would be, if you're going to do something like that, don't plan it. Just say, we're going to set up here. I wouldn't have right in the middle of the action. I'd be off the side. Yeah, off the side a bit, or find a room where you can still hear the murmur of the crowd, but you're not having people just walk by all the time and make some noise.
You don't want to be in the center of the room. You want to be along the periphery.
On the side, yes.
You also, for us, this is how I look at it, and these gentlemen look at it. We want to be able to reach out and grab someone and say, hey, Ben Barsh, come on down. You're the next asshole on Talking Crit Live.
Right.
Join us for 10 minutes. We grab James Raggy, we grab Courtney one year. You grab whoever, and they stay for as long or as little as they want. But the idea is, in my mind, to give the feel to the viewing public of, we're at a convention and these are the people here. And guess what? We wish you were here with us.
We've had Bill. We got grabbed Kim George one time at the show. The most memorable though was when we were doing the show and Zeb Cook is doing a hoedown behind us for God knows whatever reason. He may have been maybe a little drinky poo. I don't know, but he was actually doing a hoedown behind us, and we're like, oh, Zeb Cook has lowered himself. Zeb Cook is dancing behind Eric and I.
Zeb Cook is like TSR Galactus. He's just sort of an environmental force, right? He just sort of announces himself. He has no herald, right? So it's a little.
You'll get gold, and another gold was Eric. Do you remember Apple Tequila?
Oh my God! Steve Marsh should keep that shit to himself.
Steve Marsh donated a bottle of Apple Tequila. Somebody was a porn star, not Satine, had started a tequila farm in Mexico. This is her own brand of tequila, and somehow in her addled, drug-infested, syphilis-destroyed mind, thought that apples would go great with tequila. I'm going to give you a sneak preview, Jim. They don't. They don't at all. They go together like Germans and whiskey.
I was about to say, it makes me look back fondly on the German whiskey.
Yeah, the German whiskey was a treat compared to this. It was bad. And so we tested it on air.
And nobody wanted the bottle. Steve left it behind. We left it behind.
We left it behind.
So that's the other thing is that just like poor TV newscasters have to deal with some jackwagon running behind them and saying something awful. If you do your show in a public area, you run the risk of things like that.
It will happen.
And so think about that where you're setting up and so on and so forth.
It will happen. Yeah. So that would be my suggestion, is have it a little off the way place. Don't have a planned show. Have some subject to talk about, but when people walk by, you can drop it quick enough. I'll give you another example too. I'm not going to name anybody involved, but I saw a show at a con once, and they were trying to schedule guests. Well, it's their opening night of a con. Everybody's drinking, they're having fun or whatever. So their scheduled guests aren't really showing up. So they grabbed somebody who was not a scheduled guest, but somebody they talked to, and they didn't expect what happened was, and apparently, I'm not lying. Apparently the person was going through some deep personal trouble, the person they grabbed, and thought it'd be great to unburden themselves for about 15 minutes on this show. at the con, and the co-hosts are just sitting there going, "Do we?" Then you can see them looking at each other like, "Do we stop this?" I mean, do it, and it was yeah, my year's been pretty terrible. My mom died, and then I got divorced, and then my daughter got sick. She has leukemia. I mean, it went like that, and they're just like, okay, boy, look at the time. Gotta roll on out of here.
Jeez Louise.
Oh, it was bad.
That's horrible.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. But you have to, that's something that don't grab the depressed looking guy walking by. I don't know, but don't be so desperate to grab somebody. You're just like, look, our guys didn't show up. We got to have somebody there. No, just take in the ambiance of the convention. Talk about what's going on your trip there. Talk about what you've done at the past convention. Past stories about the convention. That's what we do, and that's what we did last year. And we usually do is we talk about, what do you remember best about North Texas? Oh my gosh, I remember this one time that this happened. That's a great way to go. Just go down that lane. You're usually not going to get anywhere, too scary or too awful. Just talk about, talk about things like that. But you can make it work. Just don't overplan. I guess that would be my suggestion.
Right. Yeah, have some flexibility. Be ready to roll with the punches. So
there's always danger to doing live streams. I've spoken to other YouTubers that are very averse to doing live streams, even with regular co-hosts, let alone special guests, because this isn't scripted. All right, and this isn't like, oh, Mike just did what? He said what about who? If I was doing my own video, like my wife would review it, and then she'd go, yeah, you got to cut that piece out or redo it. We'd be like, oh, hopefully it gets lost in the shuffle, because you're live. And if you are a channel that is, I don't know, living or dying by the sword and the revenue you bring in, unless you're getting a lot of super chats, which we don't get anyway. Unless you're getting a lot of super chats, live streams probably aren't in your benefit. But we have a blast doing it. I do live streams.
I look forward to it.
It's so hard I've been sore the next day.
Yeah.
Whoa,
And they're right.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to put things in perspective for folks. We're doing a live stream tonight. I'm going to do a special live stream tomorrow at 1 p.m. for my folks across the pond. Got an 8 o'clock live stream with Don and Tom. I got a live stream with the Random Party on Friday. Gamers Health on Saturday. And 7 p.m. Sunday, the first of Inappropriate Characters. So I do a lot of live streams. And I do it because they're fun and they're unpredictable. And that's how I like to run my games, right? To have them be unpredictable.
Totally random.
Totally random, dude. Totally random. So
it's like you're trapped in the original Point Break, but instead of presidents, they're all Smurfs. Random.
All right. Now you tripping, son. Now you tripping. You were drinking some of that apple tequila. That's probably still hidden in a hotel somewhere.
It was too toxic for them to dispose of. They put it in a basement room in the Westin, and it's like got iron walls around it, and there's a lock that only one person knows. Actually, nobody knows the full combination. There's 5 people that know one part of it, and that's how you have to get in there to the apple tequila. But it was a vanity brand, they call it. Somebody that thought, hey, I'm rich, I got a lot of money, I'm going to spend it on a tax write-off. Let's make some tequila and let's put apple in it. And that's whoa, that was bad stuff. Yeah, I kind of lied though. It was as bad as the German whiskey. It wasn't better. It was just as miserable. This is terrible.
Well, by the way, you know what? I just realized that I should probably make a convention announcement for a convention that is relatively off the grid, but it's a convention being held in Baltimore in honor of Levi Combs.
My old stomping ground.
Yes, please. We all love Levi. Please tell us.
Okay, so the website is GameFaceCon.com. GameFaceCon.com. I'll put the link on the screen in a little bit. It's in Baltimore, March 8th and 9th. It's being held in a brewery.
Oh.
Is it the Baltimore Brewery? I've been thrown out of there. I have a
Let's
great
see.
story. I have a spectacular story about the Baltimore Brewery.
I don't know if it's the
No, it says the Peabody Heights Brewery.
Okay.
I have been thrown out of there.
Guest of honor Levi Combs with a special canned beer, Crohn's Eye, which is being dedicated to Levi. Attendance costs you nothing. Costs you nothing. Free to attend. So I'm already scouting out hotels for me.
There's
It's about
quite a few people.
4.5 hour drive, maybe.
Goodness, there's quite a few vendors there, or people that are going to be there. That's great because for those that don't know, Levi had he had a brain tumor that came out, or I say brain tumor. It's just call it brain tumor. His brain tumor came out. He's been out of the con scene for about a year, but he went to Page, and by the way, he's a special guest again at North Texas this year. He'll be at North Texas. We don't even care if he runs anything. We just want Levi there. So he is one of the nicest guys in gaming. Absolutely. Let me tell you here's what I come out when I think about Levi. The year that 2020 COVID year, when we told everybody not to show up, was Doug's last year at the con. Doug was very sick. He did not make it to 2021. Well, he made it 2021, but he didn't make it to the con that year. So 2020 was the last con that Doug got to do. We didn't want to do the con. Doug said, I really want to do it because I think he sensed that he didn't have a lot of cons in him. We still had the con. We had about 75 people show up. Levi was the only person that flew in. Because we told him, don't fly in. We don't want you flying in. If you remember how horrible the whole COVID thing was, travel was terrible and masks and shots and this and that. And Levi flew in. And so I'm talking to Levi one day. I said, I appreciate this so much. And he said, I just thought that Doug might not have another con in him. And he was right. And so he wanted to hang out with Doug. And I love the man. He's an amazing guy that, went above and beyond the Call of Duty to say, hey, I'm gonna show up for this con. For those of you that went through 2020, it was hard to travel. They made it difficult to go anywhere. And Levi said, nope, I'm flying into this convention because I want to do this. And so I owe the man a lot. He's just a great guy, incredible writer too. If you like really pulpy adventures, his stuff is the pulpiest of pulpy, man. It would fit right at home with Lamentations stuff, except his stuff, Levi's stuff isn't mean. It's more winky, kind of,
Right.
He has one whole adventure about, basically a mutant family. It's a D&D adventure, but it's about a mutant family in the middle of this desert. So take your favorite horror movie with mutant families in the middle of the desert and convert it to D&D, and that's what you have with that. But Levi does some great stuff. I would recommend anything Levi's written, anything. It's all good stuff. So good for him, and I'm glad he's back. I'm glad he's doing better, and we can't wait to see him in North Texas this year.
By the way, we got Dell in the room right now. So Dell,
hey, he is Dell.
On the spot, Dell. We got to bring you on the show one day. Offer's been made. It's been made in public. If you turn us down, man, everybody's gonna know you turned us down. So it's on you, man. We'll bring you in when it works for you, but we got to bring you on one day. Just saying. But
by the way, just a little sneak preview too. I talked to Jeffrey Jones tonight. He will be on the show next week to talk about his Kickstarter. He has a Shadow Dark Kickstarter, Dark Visions. It looks great. And I back pretty much everything Jeffrey does.
Oh my God.
It's all good. It's all good. Everything he does. And so, and I thank Eric. Eric introduced me to him because he did work for you, right? He did some editing for you.
He laid out Torchlight 0, Torchlight 1, and he was editing and laying out Continual Light until Continual Light shot the bed during the OGL fiasco and hasn't come back yet. So, it's more.
You told me about him, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. We're going to have him on the show. I'm like, whatever. We had him on the show. Like, okay, I like this guy. And then I started looking at his Kickstarters, and I started supporting all his Kickstarters. And he's got some great stuff. And I noticed this Kickstarter is doing really well. For his Kickstarters usually hover around the, I don't know, $7,000 to $8,000 mark. This one's already up to 17,000.
Wow.
That's the magic of Shadow Dark, folks. Because Shadow Dark. And so he's doing a Shadow Dark book with 16 cults, GM player resources, and 3 adventures. There's a soft cover version, a hardcover, and he and his writer, I think his writer's name's Zach. Not that Zach. His,
No, is it Zach?
Not the other Zach either. Not those Zachs.
Is it Zach Owens?
Yeah, Zach Owens. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah. And they'll be on next week. So it'll be great. I can't wait to talk. This stuff's really good.
So
Gary's appendix. Gary's appendix is awesome.
We will make it. We will nail you down at some point, though. Thank you. All right, Jim. What else? What other shit we got?
I don't know. I think I think we're all sort of in the post-holiday days trying to get through everything.
True.
I don't know. I'm starting to think about the convention schedule and think about what's coming up. This is the time of year where you have to, like Gen Con's registration is coming up and event registrations are starting to roll around and all the rest of that. So I think a lot of people think about that.
Can I say one real quick thing?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to say that this weekend we're having a mini con at the Westin where we have the convention, North Texas. And I'm not going to pimp that con because if you want to come. If you don't want to, whatever. But I just want to say, just for a 2-day mini con, we have had amazing response from people. We've got people flying in from all over the United States. We've got people coming in from all over Texas. And so what you said earlier about, Paige is how good Paige did, we've kind of seen that the whole last year of conventions, haven't we? I mean, the last 2 years, anything with an RPG convention has just done boffo numbers. And so, I mean, I have my theories. I would like you guys to talk about. Well, what do you think is the deal? Is this like a post-COVID? Oh my gosh, we're finally out of the house. But how come it's lasted 3 years now? We've had this going on for a few years now. Why are cons suddenly becoming big business now?
I'll be right back. 1 second.
Oh, damn it!
I'll give you my opinion.
Okay.
COVID is 2020, 2021. But 2022, there were still places that were having, mask mandates.
Yeah.
So by the time 23 came around, now people are adjusting to it. But there was still that fear, right? There was still that fear of COVID. I think last year and this year, we're removed enough from the COVID era that people are not just returning to cons. People are going, I got to go. I haven't gone in years. I mean, and I think that changes the dynamics, and I think it's like playing catch up. So I think it's a good thing. I know
it's been really good. I mean, because it's not just attendance, Eric. People go to these cons; they've been spending a lot of money at the cons. I mean, it's just like I said. Gary and I, we took over.
Hold on, folks. It's going to be appreciated.
I wanted to make sure, as long as I'm going to be shooting my mouth off and making predictions, I was wearing the appropriate fez for just this moment. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mike. I didn't mean to interrupt.
How am I supposed to follow that? But no, seriously, it's great for the hobby. I'm glad that it's part of, because one of the things we were talking about with COVID was just the fact that, this is all because of COVID. And yes, there's been a little drop off in sales for some companies, WotC especially. After COVID, people were trapped in their apartments and couldn't go anywhere, and they had to do something. They had to play online. But yeah, Gary and I, and even before that with Eric, with Doug, we never sold out, so to speak. Last year we sold out in freaking April, and this year looks like we're going to be close to the same sellout dates. And this has just been an amazing response the last few years to our con. And then I look at other cons like Gamehole and Gary Con, and all the cons. I don't know anybody that's doing worse that I feel like is like, well, we just had a really bummer of a year last year. That hasn't happened at all. It's been, and look at all the new cons out there. I see a ton of new cons, just starting out. I had a list the other day. I don't have it with me, but I was making a list of these cons. I was going to write, send them an email and say, hey, you guys need any donations or need anything free or whatever. And there was I went online, found a whole list of new cons. This is really taken off in the last few years, and I'm not exactly sure of the reasons. I mean, yes, post COVID has a lot to do with it, but there's something else going on here that I just can't put my finger on. So, Jim, can you put your finger on it?
I can put my finger on a lot of things, and that's why I've been thrown out of various places. So I grabbed the Fez prediction because I feel like that's part of this. Let me make sure it's properly aligned. First of all, let me just put in an endorsement. Of course, I am one of the Fezerati with the Fez from Fez-O-Rama. They're a family-owned business that make Fezes. They used to come to Gen Con every single year. And then it's a husband and wife. And then they used to bring their daughter, who is a glamazon. That's literally the term she would use. But the wife had cancer, and so they had to back off of Gen Con. They haven't been to Gen Con for a couple of years. But really and truly, if you admire this chapeau, please, for God's sakes, go check out Fez-O-Rama and tell them that I sent you, because they are good people. They make other styles besides Fezes, but please, So there's the shout out. So why are cons exploding again? I think a few things. Number one, let's talk about COVID. Like, COVID did some damage to a lot of people. And I don't just mean the people that now still insist on wearing 3 masks when they go outside to get the newspaper. COVID and our national response to COVID created a lot of damage. We had people that we had teenagers that went sideways from this. We had adults that went sideways from this. We saw this gigantic move to online gaming. But there's a difference. The 3 of us get together on Wednesday night for a couple of hours, and we're each in our separate locations. But I see these guys as at least at 2 shows every year. I think it's only 1 because one of you isn't coming to GaryCon this year. But we see each other at North Texas. We talk to each other constantly. I'm a big believer that to maintain friendships are like gardens. You have to put the time and the effort to maintain the friendship. And one of the pieces of that is staying in touch with each other. And oftentimes, if you are the only gamer in the family, right, it's hard to keep yourself excited, to keep yourself enthusiastic, and so on. You want to see new stuff. You want to play new games. You want to try things out. All of the above. And conventions are the only place that really offer that experience. We make fun of Gen Con because it's so big, but Gen Con is where my son and I first climbed into the BattleTech pods, and he spent every game trying to shoot me, and I spent every game showing him why I'm an old man who's been playing BattleTech longer. Miniature gaming. It's great to go to someplace and see these gigantic epic tables that people have put together. When you see the game that you've heard about, but you can also actually get a demo game or sit at a seat or whatnot, that's an undeniable experience. We want to be face to face with people. We want to be drunk with the people we admire. And I can tell you, I've been around people who I used to look up to and have thought to myself, I need a drink if I'm going to stay around this person any longer. It's a convention that conventions offer that experience the way nothing else does. And that's why I'm a fan of conventions. I always talk about, I grew up in Eastern Kentucky, and I went to a convention. My very first convention was a small 1-day convention in an ag hall in Eastern Kentucky called Augury. And I had a button. I had 2 buttons. I don't know where the other one is, but I had 2 buttons from that show. But it was my first taste of, I'm not alone. I'm not the only person interested in all this weird shit. And I met a guy from the Lexington group of gamers that wrote a bunch of the stuff for the SPI Barsoom John Carter of Mars game. I got to play in D&D. I was in the tournament. I got killed. I had the classic first time con experience, but it set the stage for me to say there's more out there. And I think for a long time we saw people just not having local conventions for whatever reason. I think COVID shut down a lot of shows, And I think it's resilient and it's come back. Now, that said, the emphasis is on the showrunners to provide a good show, to have a great show. And if you have a mediocre show, you should expect it to decline and die. I there's a local show that's near me, but is always the same weekend as GaryCon, and I never get a chance to go to it. I've not been to it. I've only heard about it. I've been to Adepticon once, and Adepticon was always the same weekend as GaryCon, but now they're opposites of each other, and I have a chance of going back to Adepticon. If you're a miniatures guy, Adepticon started as a bunch of people who just wanted to have a nice little get together and play games, and it's grown into the biggest miniatures event in the world. That's how shows should start. What Mike said earlier is the resounding point to all of this, which is you have to be sincere. If you approach a con as a cash grab and I'm going to make a bunch of money, what was the show on Netflix about the disastrous concert on an island somewhere? Fire Island.
Oh yeah, the Fire Island show.
Fire Festival or whatever it was.
Yeah, Fire Festival.
Yeah, that's
exactly. Great documentary too. It's a great documentary.
And I'm a big believer that you have to have your heart in the right spot, and you have to have your finger on the pulse of this stuff, right? You have to care. I don't understand why people don't. I've seen some shows that I know are cash grabs. I've been to shows that are cash grabs, and I haven't been to one of those in a long time. But I know they're out there, right? Somebody says, well, if we do this and this, we can make this and we can grow it to this. And by the time it grows to that, we're going to have a steady stream of income. The thing that I always used to be amused by / appalled by were the folks who were the initial investors of DragonCon. One of the initial investors of DragonCon is a real problem child. And eventually got bought out or kicked out or something. But essentially, like if you had ponied up money for DragonCon back in the day, your share of DragonCon was now worth a considerable fortune.
Yeah.
I don't think you should approach contributing to a con, investing in a con, funding a con as a means to an end of filthy lucre. I think what you have to do is you have to say, right, I want to play games. I want to play the games I love, or I want to give a chance for people to experience the games I love by having a little convention, and we'll see where it goes. I encourage people to do this, right? If you're in a town of 15, 20, 25, 30,000 people, your local hotel would be delighted to see you fill their ballroom with a bunch of tables and people, and maybe also fill 10, 15 rooms. And if you can grow that and grow that and grow that, that's phenomenal, right? And that's something where you can look back in 5, 10, 15, 20 years and say, I grew that. I grew that from 25 people standing around playing BattleTech to something like Adepticon. And Adepticon took off because everybody involved wanted to have the kind of experience that when they would go to other shows, it wouldn't be that way. Why is there no sparkling clean lucre? Because, the shitheels of the world don't operate that way, right? They cut corners, they do awful things, blah, 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 blah. I think you can look at a convention though, and you can see pretty clearly where the heart is in the right place.
Right.
I'd much rather go to a con and they've sold out of shirts than they have too many shirts and they're $75, $80 a piece, right? Like slow your roll and grow your show. I think that's it. There, I'll take my hat off because it hurts too because my head is so fat. But no, I think I'm a big fan of shows. I like big shows. I like regional shows. And that's the thing that people don't understand is, Ron at Page has hit on the exact thing that he needed. He found an underserved area. One of the largest Games Workshop trade accounts in the world was Showcase Comics in and around Philadelphia. And Showcase Comics are the folks who bought, when we decided to get out of the retail stores that were in Philly, they're the ones who bought the locations, bought the inventory, and rolled them into being Showcase comic stores. And it's not like if you're at Penn or somewhere else, you can't drive to Page. Right. And I think Ron's absolutely spot on. I think all the major cities, for the most part, now have gaming conventions of some kind. I think if you're in a city of 100,000 or more, and you're like, I don't think there's a convention, you're not paying attention, because there probably is, and you should go to it, right? Go to the swap meets, go to the open gaming tables, look around. Again, right? If it smells awful and it's not good and it's a bad experience, walk away. Don't worry, it'll go away. That show won't last. These shows are always dependent on the show runners. I went to Marshall University, and there was a show called MunchCon. MunchCon was sort of a mixed media. There was gaming, but there was comic books, there was science fiction, fantasy, and so on and so forth. It was sort of just a miscellaneous show. And it ran for a number of years until everybody graduated and left. And once the key personalities were gone, it died. And it stayed dead for about 20 years. And then finally, some people brought it back and it started going. But I met Joe Duffy. I met Joe Duffy at MunchCon and got to hear her talking about Akira, this amazing thing called Akira that was coming, that people didn't know about, and so on and so forth. And her experience working with Star Wars and working with a license on the comic books and so on. And that's the advantages that small cons give you, right? If they can only land one or two guests, those two guests are trapped at the show, right? Like, your chance to interact with them in a way that you might not get. And that's significant as well. That's what
so one time, epic story, I won't get into the whole story. We went to a con in East Texas, and sadly the guy who ran the con triple booked it. So it's at a Holiday Inn that's like this, you're just like squeezed in, and through the machinations of Doug and his wallet, we were able to get a private game room up atop so we could look down on the unwashed mashes. We came there because they had Jim Ward there. Jim Ward had been invited to this small little con in East Texas to run, Game World. And so we said, hey, it's only 2.5 hours away. Let's go and we'll see Jim. And we had a blast of a time. And Jim was really, for us, the only draw there. It was a lot of anime people and some comic people, whatever. But there was probably, I don't know, maybe this con that had 1,000 people that should have only had about 300. There was probably, a quarter of that even knew who Jim Ward was. But, it was great to just go to this con and see him. We had a blast just interacting with this one guest we knew. And that's the joy of a small con. Sometimes you go to that and you get that one guest, and you can have a lot of I got to meet Mark Miller at a small con, Texas Game Expo, probably about 500 people there. And they got Mark Miller as a guest. God knows why North Texas can't get him. We've asked him, but this little con's more than the rest of him. And I got to talk to him for about an hour. And, oddly enough, we didn't talk a lot of Traveler. We talked a lot of, he's really into sci-fi and space stuff. And I think we talked SpaceX. I mean, it was really cool. It was just cool to sit there and talk with Mark Miller for an hour, the man, the legend. Of course, I didn't get to thing because I'm stupid. But,
one of the best experiences I've ever had at any convention, hands down, is I now have a semi-regular breakfast with Earl Otis once a year. And Earl and I, one time, I was looking for a place to sit down at GaryCon to have breakfast, and Earl had an extra seat at his little 2-person table. And he goes, Jim, you want to sit with me? And I was like, yeah. And so we had the greatest talk about everything, and Earl living in the San Francisco area and the whole 9 yards, and just, it was wonderful. It had nothing to do with TSR. It had nothing to do with art. It was just two people having a normal conversation, and it went so well that Earl's like, we should do this again. And I was like, I would love to do this again. So I think this year at GaryCon, we're going to have another one of those times. And I would never have had that if I hadn't gotten in an Earl Otis game and hit it off with Earl and just became, not like, I don't pretend I'm close friends, but I'm friends enough that Earl's willing to let me sit down at the table and eat breakfast with him. And shit,
I'll take it, man. You'll take it.
That's right. What else have I got going on?
Well, yeah, and for some reason, breakfast is where this happens. I mean, my first North Texas, Rach and I had Matt Finch join us one morning for breakfast, and Doug Kovacs another morning. And I still love Doug Kovacs. I don't like cops, but I like you. Okay.
That's pretty
Alrighty.
good. I can work with that.
I can work with that. Yes. So that's where I sat down. Mike, remember Gary Con? Me and Wenger sat down for breakfast. That was what, 2016, correct?
That's when you were feuding and you made
Wow.
up, and then you started feuding again. So it was interesting. It was a detente in the feuding.
I get along with you pretty well now.
He's just who he is, right? So,
Oh,
but yeah, no, I've just always been, like I said, I love to go. Like I said, I like the small cons because I go there and, like you said, maybe there's one guy. They have the one guest, but you usually have a lot of one-on-one time with that one guest
Yeah.
because
yes.
I mean, we rescued Jim because so we go there and Jim's running a game and he's walking with his cane. So we go, we're gonna kind of check this out for you, Jim. We go in this room. First of all, I'm not joking. This con was triple booked. The guy was trying to make a lot of money and make it. So it was overcrowded in that I'm pretty sure the fire department could absolutely shut it down without any problem. So we go in the game room and there's this table in the middle of all these tables, and literally there's somebody's chair is backed up to your chair. You can't even back up. And we said, Jim is not running the game in there. We are not going to let a living legend run a game where they're all jammed in, hot, sweaty, smelly, whatever people. So Doug went up there and said, do you guys have any private rooms? Like, oh, we got that room up there, and there was a room and it overlooked the ballroom. Like, perfect. How much is it? I don't know, whatever. Doug said, yeah, here you go. And so all of Jim's games are moving to that room. Awesome. So we moved Jim's games to that room. We put a note on the table, dear attendee, the table, we're not using this shitty ass table. And so we had a nice big board table, and Jim had the best time. Jim could be a rocketeer. I mean, he would, talk and stuff and told stories. And I got to play this Gamble game. I have some great stories from that. You probably all heard before about how we got the signed card from Jim. We took him to lunch later. We took him to dinner. I mean, we just hung out. It was so great. We got to spend a whole weekend with a living legend, with Jim Ward. And I think he was very appreciative we were there because this is how much the people who booked him knew about him, Jim and Eric.
Well, yeah.
So he signed an autograph Saturday. There was a sign over where he signed it. It was in the lobby. It said, Jim Ward, the creator of Dungeons and Dragons.
Meanwhile,
and so we're like, and he's like, and so that's how much they knew about this guy they booked, not the creator of Dungeons and Dragons. But anyway, and Jim kind of laughed it off. You could tell he was kind of upset by that because should have said the creator of Metamorphosis Alpha, whatever. And so, but yeah, we got to spend a whole weekend with him. It was great. I'll always remember that weekend. I went with Doug and my brother and Zach Glazer, and we saw people we knew there, and it was just fun. We had a blast. We got to eat barbecue, all you can eat ribs place. Oh my God, I'll remember that place forever. It's so good. So good. That's one where I tried to stop eating, and the lady came from the back and said, honey, you only have one plate of ribs. You'll have another plate of ribs. I'm like, okay. I'll eat another plate of ribs because the sweet lady told me to. And so it was, but anyway, the whole thing was great. And that's why you go to these experiences. And that's why I love small cons over big cons. I don't have those same kind of stories at big cons. I really don't.
No.
So speaking of sniveling shit weasels, you mentioned in the comments that somebody tried to friend you on Facebook.
Yes.
Should we perhaps explain which sniveling shit weasel this is?
Well, we don't know for sure, but
I actually know for sure who created the account. I just don't know for sure who is currently controlling the account. So
I love that. Like somebody's behind the scenes, pulling the strings.
It could be one of the accounts that are shared by multiple people now. I don't know, but it's an individual that used to work at the newer TSR and now works with Clownfish TV, I believe.
Some sort of clown.
Oh dear. Is that yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this person tried to friend me and tried to join the North Texas page, but he was foiled by our 2 questions we have to ask because
What questions are they, Mike?
What is your favorite game and where did you hear about us? And so the where did you
Are
hear
their
about us? He
answers
said,
really fit for the stream? I don't know if their answers are fit for the stream.
no, they're probably not. But so thank you for stopping me, Jim, because I was so amused I was going to share it. But let's just say that that they quickly outed themselves with their answers to the questions.
Again, sniveling shitweasels have to be sniveling shitweasels.
Yes.
And so the reason mostly we're talking about it is because this person frequently will get into the comments of other people's posts and he will attack people. And so if you are friends with somebody and they say, hey, I'm doing this for this game, or I'm preparing this, or whatever, yeah, this is the person that responds with some awful, terrible comment because they're awful and terrible people. And like syphilis, unfortunately, like syphilis, they're unlike syphilis because
There's
at
no
least there's
cure.
a cure for syphilis. These people, there's no cure for. And again, sniveling shitweasels have to snivel, and they have to be shitweasels.
Oh dear.
Like, isn't syphilis untreated like turn you into like terminally insane? I mean, that could be something similar. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
Let's talk about something pleasant.
We'll throw that to any doctors in the audience. You want to get back to us? Let us know. We'll talk about that later. We don't want to talk. We don't really feel like talking, but I just thought that was amusing because I don't know how dumb they thought I was, or if they're just the ultimate.
Their stupidity is their armor of invulnerability.
Like I don't know who they are. Oh, and then, by the way, I didn't even show you the part, the guys, where he was watching the show. His comments, I previewed his comments he was going to post, and they had to do with our show tonight about how miserable we are, how much we hate Gary Gygax because we spoke terrible about him. So,
somebody's listening with half an ear or through their ear or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not easy being this sniveling. Whatever, cry me a river.
He's blocked now, so we'll never see. Unfortunately, never see him. Sadly, and I guess I'm blocked from his face. He's blocked, so I'll never get to.
Anyway,
he has any
let's talk about a Kickstarter. Let's talk about Jeffrey Jones's Kickstarter. Let's talk about something positive.
Well, we're going to talk about Jeffrey Jones's Kickstarter next week. He'll be on for 2 hours next week, and we will talk about it then. And I will show you my love of digest and fanzines because I have every Gary's appendix over there, which is the Kickstarter he's done. He kickstarts every issue of that, and some other stuff he's done. But I will show. Oh, first of all, Jim, I got something for you.
Oh,
I want to show you this because I knew you'd appreciate it.
I'm excited.
As everybody on the show knows, I'm going through boxes, selling my collection bit by bit and stuff that I'm never going to use or whatever. And I found this.
A copy of Death Zone.
Not only a copy of Death Zone, Jim, unpunched Death Zone, unused. I'm going to throw that out. But yeah, I thought you might get a kick out of that. That's
excellent.
That's a blast from the Games Workshop past.
What a great version of the game too. That was the version of Blood Bowl that finally got it all right. And really and truly, that's what the modern version of Blood Bowl's roots are in that version of Blood Bowl.
I hope I get to play it someday, Joe. I've never played Blood Bowl, but I remember eagerly reading through it. I had some of the miniatures.
Okay, this is going to verge on the political, but can I tell my Blood Bowl story?
Absolutely.
All right. So you should understand that the Games Workshop offices in Baltimore, when Blood Bowl came out, everybody had teams. And I had a Dark Elf team. And my Dark Elf team was named the Shameless Republicans. And so the members of my Dark Elf team included Batlin Barbara Bush, the Witch Elf.
Oh dear.
And my star player, the guy who just kept nailing it and kept getting all my star player points, was Eye of the Newt Gingrich. Okay. So somewhere I still have the sheet, right? But now you have to understand how small of a world this is. Lo and behold, I work with a guy named Blair, and Blair's brother, Brian, is one of the Capitol Police. And Blair's brother, Brian, is on the personal security detail for Newt Gingrich. Now, this is
No.
like 1994, 95.
Oh my gosh.
And so one day they're in an elevator or they're going somewhere. And of course, like Gingrich is talking to Brian because he sees Brian every day and Brian goes with him everywhere. And Brian's like, hey, my brother works for this game company and they have this fake fantasy football game called Blood Bowl. And he goes, oh, yeah? He says, yeah. And he says, and a guy in the league has a team called the Shameless Republicans. And one of his star players is Eye of the Newt Gingrich. And he goes, that's awesome. And so, like this, I find this out later because, and I have it here somewhere. I'll have to fish it out. So I'm at my desk and mail rolls in and the office manager walks over and drops an envelope on my desk and says, here, you got something in the mail today. And I'm like, what? And I look and up in the corner, the return address is the U.S. House of Representatives.
No way.
And I'm like, what? And I open it up, and it has an autographed picture of Newt Gingrich that says to my friend Jim.
Oh my God.
And like,
dude,
I still have it. I know where it is, and it was right during Gingrich's contract with America and the whole 9 yards. But like that day, I think it was that night, I went over to my dad's for dinner. And I was like, have I got a story for you? And my dad's like, is this more of this weird game shit? And I'm like, no. Like, let me tell you the story. So I tell him. And I said, and then I got this envelope and I handed it to my dad. And my dad is like, holy shit.
What did you do for Newt?
That's right. So somewhere I have my autographed picture of Newt Gingrich because of my Dark Elf Blood Bowl team.
And see, I knew if I pulled that box out, you would have a kick-ass story, Jim, and I was freaking right.
I don't know if it's a kick-ass story, but it's just
it is
too funny.
So let me show you this.
World, right?
So, Eric, you remember about a year ago, or maybe longer than that, we had Bunny and Zane on.
Yes.
And they did. So I finally got their Kickstarter finally arrived. Really, really good quality, unnatural selection. It's lots of different choices of races and species and spells and magic items and monsters for Shadow Dark. And there's extra thing in there. Really beautiful quality, I don't know if you're one of her friends on Facebook. I reached out and asked if she and Zane would be wanting to come on the show again because she posted about a week back all the issues. So this is a very late Kickstarter.
Right.
And she so when we had them on the show, Eric, now you probably don't remember a lot of this, but this is their first Kickstarter. They did it through BackerKit, and they were one of the first BackerKit Kickstarters at the time. And it funded, it did really well, whatever. They lost money on the Kickstarter because of various reasons. And she posted a long post about why they lost money on it.
Wow.
Shipping issues, publishing issues. They had massive publishing issues. They would send stuff in and then they'd get a sample back and it was wrong and they'd have to redo it. I mean, it was a nightmare for them. I felt so bad for them because you can tell this is a project of love and they really did a great job, but they didn't make any money on this. They lost money on this Kickstarter and it was really a bummer story. And I said, look, if you and Zane want to come on and talk about your experience there, just talk about Unnatural Selection, but talk about what happened. I'd love to have you guys back on because it was her post. If you see it, Eric, try to see if you can find it. It was probably a week or so back. It was really sad. It was a very sad story about people that just wanted to do a kick-ass Kickstarter. And because of all the hoops they had to jump through and they didn't really know what they were doing, it was their first Kickstarter. They just got hammered right, left, and forward on everything. And they just didn't make the kind of money they should have made, which, and you know how it is. Sometimes the margins of Kickstarters aren't that great a margin.
No.
You may make $40,000 on the Kickstarter, but you're only pocketing, $2,000 or $3,000 when it comes down to it, when you fulfill everything. So that's kind of what happened to them. It kind of sucks, but I would highly recommend this if you like Shadow Dark. It's the same format as Shadow Dark, as you can tell by the, it's got the same kind of format. That it looks very OSE-ish the way it is, but it's I would say it was worth the money. And it sucks it was so late, but once you read her post, you'll see why it wasn't really a lot of it was publishing miscues. But it just goes to show, we talk about all the time, is that it's not easy to publish Kickstarter, and nobody's really getting rich off Kickstarters, man. You're really not.
I'll tap in with a quick rant, right? So a lot of game companies start in people's basements or their home office or their kitchen table or whatnot. Like Games Workshop started with two guys around a kitchen table. TSR started in Gary's basement. Wizards of the Coast started at Peter Atkinson's house. All this stuff is critically important, but let me get to where I'm going real quick. I would plead with anybody, right? I would plead with anybody. You have to decide very quickly which side of the equation you fall on as far as a game publisher. Do you want to be a nonprofit or do you want to be a for-profit? There's a lot of people out there, they're like, man, I want to make my games affordable. I want to do one-page rule sets. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I'm not here to argue with you about your egalitarian efforts in regards to making games available to the masses. That's not my point. But you have to decide whether or not you want to be profitable or not from the very get-go. If you are going to spend an inordinate amount of time making something as a labor of love just to sort of get its carcass across the finish line and throw it out there, and you're not going to pay yourself what you're worth, then you're a nonprofit. And you are publishing, you're a vanity publisher. This is like when you write a book and you send it off and you get your book printed for you, and it doesn't come from a real publishing house. It didn't go through the process. You just got your furry fanfic published, and now you're going to be setting up at every gun show and knitting show with your table trying to sell your books. And I wish you all the best. I do. But there has to be a time and a place for if you're going to do a Kickstarter and you've got an amazing project and you've got something that you think is going to get traction and you've been to a number of shows and you've play tested this and you've run people through the scenarios and you've got it absolutely on point and so on and so forth. When it's time to do the Kickstarter, when it's time to bring your project to the world and put it in front of people, for God's sakes, you need to go to an accountant. You need to go to somebody with some experience in each of the areas that you're going to touch, right? Fulfillment. Have you contemplated what it's like when the truck pulls up and 7 pallets are going to land in your garage? Do you have a garage? Do you have some place to do this? Do you know what's necessary to mail things out? This is why some people use a fulfillment house, but they have a good idea what it costs right from the get-go. Have you shopped printers? Have you talked to anybody? Have you even gone to a print shop in your local town and talked to them about what it might be to print your 1,000-page Wonderkind? I plead with you. I plead. It's great that you have an idea. It's great that you want to make something. But unless you are like, there's a great joke in the role-playing game industry, and I'm going to make that joke right now. How do you become a millionaire in the game industry? You start with $10 million. Because there's no shortage of people who've set out on this path and burned money and have negatives to show for what they finally do. It is the exception, not the rule, where somebody rooted in fundamentally sound business practices takes a look at cutting all the corners and making sure that something comes in. And even if it's just $1 of profit, you're still ahead of a lot of people who never figure this shit out. And I'm begging you, if you ever think of doing something, right? Kenan James's Kickstarter just wrapped up for his hardcover collection of black and white monster illustrations. And Kenan's a guy who absolutely looked at all this and lined it all up and figured out what to do with this. Now, look, I'm boring Eric and Mike. They're falling asleep while I rant. But what I would say is anybody who watches this show, if you want to do something, if you want to publish like a zine or whatnot, get your toes wet, get your idea of what the expenses are, get an idea of what it's going to take, what the cost is going to be, how much lead time, all the rest of this, because this stuff just doesn't throw together overnight. And these things cost money, and they cost more money than you realize. No matter how connected you are, they cost more money than you realize.
And I think in reading about this, what sucks is, they weren't like a Nistel who basically got into this to steal the money. Well, it didn't steal the money, but it was just a terrible, awful businessman and just blew all the money right off the bat. They were in it with good intentions and did everything right. It's just that bad things happen to them. But you have to realize that might happen with a Kickstarter. I mean, your publishing company might go under. I think from what I understood, the reading it, I looked for the post. I couldn't find it. She may have taken it down, but I don't know. But BackerKit kind of screwed them a little bit. BackerKit didn't really help them with a lot of stuff. They just kind of said, "Yeah, here you go. Use BackerKit," and BackerKit did not provide the kind of help that they really needed. I will say that the quality of the book's great. The contents are great. The shipping was excellent. They did a great job with shipping. Everything seems to have gone out right on time when they finally got it in. They were very good about keeping you aware that, look, it's late. We know it's late. Look, it's supposed to be in August. It's September. They were they did all that right. But sometimes you do everything right, you still get screwed. You get kicked in the balls, because that's just the way sadly the world is. And so I would love to have her, Bunny and Zane on again, and hopefully maybe we get them on again to talk about it and see what they're going to do next or whatever. Because I feel so bad for them, because they're really sincere people that put out a good product and wanted to do the right, do it the right way. But it just one bad thing after another happened, and there can't be anything worse than going, hey, we made $50,000 to, oh, guess what? We're in the whole 5,000. I mean, that's just like you didn't get in this job to make money, right? Because nobody, we're not all going to make 1.8 million like, Kelsey. Oh, by the way, Eric, I was going to ask you, did Kelsey get sick during the show? Because I saw she left.
I hit with Concrud. We actually spent.
Oh no!
I saw her Thursday. We did a lot of catching up, and then by I guess late Friday, she was. And
I hate that. I've never had that happen, but.
Yeah, so I think Sunday morning there, she was doing a charity game. Somebody had to step up and run it for her.
Wow.
I talked to people that were in the game that had a great time. I would assume that she's feeling better now, but I haven't spoken to her. I don't know.
The closest I've come is last year at GaryCon. The last night I was there, I started feeling a little weird Saturday night. Sunday, Guppy and I drove home together, and I started coughing a little bit. Poor Guppy, stuck in the car with me. As I coughed all over him for 8 hours, and then he ended up getting Concrete on the home. But the next day, we took a 2-day drive like I usually do. Monday, I couldn't drive. I was that sick. I was like, I just loaded up on medicine. Guppy said, I've never seen anybody drink NyQuil out of the bottle. I'm like, well, here you go, buddy. I'm dead in the bottle. But poor Guppy got sick too. But yeah, that's the closest I've ever been to getting it at economy. I thought I escaped it. It's like the scene in the movie, like, oh, I got okay. And then he gets shot by the sniper. That was me. I'm like, oh, all right. Then the drive home, I start going, oh, dear God. And then that night it got worse. And so, yeah, I feel for her. That sucks. I hope she's doing better. And Kelsey, you won't get I can guarantee you will not get Concrete in North Texas this year. So
I guarantee. What are you, the Cajun gourmet?
She won't hear me. She won't know that I said that. So, yeah, I guarantee it. Absolutely guarantee it.
I'll make sure to pass that one on.
Oh, no, don't say anything.
John makes a good point here. You also need escrow set up. The reason why, what is it, Ernie and Benoit's memorial tomb was able to be literally saved from being a failure to being published is because despite everything else that went wrong with that project, they had that money in a set-aside business account. Two main reasons why it successfully funded Kickstarters failed to deliver are, one, the money gets mixed into somebody's personal account that isn't really accounted for, and then it's kind of like, I don't know where the money is.
Oh, you cannot.
I had a sick cat. I had to pay vet bills.
Oh, no.
And the other issue, which has been, I guess, known to happen, is that people take the money and they go, oh, I got $50,000. I'm going to set up a business.
Hello, Wandering Wizard.
And he's not the only one. Joshua Frost, Quantum, one of those early Kickstarters, he did the same thing and, hired a secretary and all this stuff. That's not the money is there for. The money is to provide a product.
Yeah.
And if you have to provide the product, if there's money left over, yes, invest it in your business. But people aren't giving you money to invest in the business or invest in your product. Just wanted to throw that out there.
And,
Or to set up a
there is
con,
no
like
place in
Gorgon.
hell. There's no place in hell hot enough for people who swindle people with bad Kickstarters.
Right.
And speaking of swindlers, what was Mike Nistel citing? What did he have to say?
Is it Nistel or Nistel? I thought it was Nistel.
I have no idea.
I think it's Nistel. So
you could have asked him, Eric. You should have broke bread with him.
I never saw him. I didn't go by the booth when he was signing.
Oh, okay.
I remember that project imploding, and I remember
he signing IOUs.
Multiple projects imploding, but
three. He had three. That, by the way, which indirectly or directly led to Kickstarter's rules that you cannot have concurrent Kickstarters, because that he wasn't the only one doing it. Now, mind you, there was other people that were doing that. They were running multiple Kickstarters, but that was one of the reasons. Because yes, once you see that you made $35,000 before you even fulfill that one, you're going to say, "I'm going to dip my toe in again." Oh, and this one made $30,000. I'm going to dip my toe in again. And by the way, you haven't even done the first Kickstarter yet.
Yeah, Center Reach Miniatures was another one that
Center Stage. Yeah,
treated it like a Ponzi scheme. That more money in to fulfill the prior one. That's an issue.
Yep.
Thankfully, for the most part, that is no longer an issue. But
yeah, they have. I will say, all the weird stuff that Kickstarter's done, they have tightened that up quite a bit, and at least you can't. They're pretty strict about you have to have fulfilled this project. Well, not quite fulfilled it, but you have to have done certain steps to get to your project. You have to prove the project's there basically before we'll let you do another Kickstarter project. And so it's not just like, yeah, you have 15 ideas. Let's start 15 Kickstarters and let's get rolling on this. No. That's no longer a thing. But
I'm going to take a little minute for a timeout here. Paul Catrone, I'm glad to see you. Paul had surgery earlier today. I hope it all went well. He was hoping to drop into the live stream from recovery. Apparently he has. So Paul, like I said, you were in my prayers. I'm hoping this means everything went well.
Or at least
he's bored enough to appear on our show in the comments. He must be doing.
Well, it's a good thing.
He's like, oh man, what else?
We need every viewer, even if they're hospitalized and in post recovery.
There you go.
Yes, set up the computer right in front of the hospital bed and the little machine that goes beep beep beep.
We don't need you coherent. We're not.
Have the nurse log you in, and whatever gets us the clicks. We don't care.
Here's my password.
Oh my god!
Yeah, just give the password to the nurse. Make sure she does not go to certain spots, the dark web, and then
you're good.
And you're good. Well, God, Paul, we're glad to hear you're doing it. Sounds like you're doing okay. Thanks for showing up there.
I think I mean, you may have pronounced it differently, but I think it's spelled. I think I just heard you guys say unlike and unsubscribe. That was pretty amazing.
Hey. Listen, James Ragg, he just put up a video and he's like, let me see how many subscribers I can lose. Now, mind you, James was shirtless, but he kept it above the nipples. So, I mean.
I again, right? Like, I don't need the role-playing game industry to, become a carnival sideshow. I don't need to know who the
Jim, have you been to the midnight auction? Have you been to the midnight auction? Think about your next words before what you say.
First of all, yes. Second of all, don't throw that at me if I can't have more fun at the midnight auction.
It's not officially. It's not part of the. We made it after midnight because officially it's not part of the convention.
You've shut me out and you've shut me down, and so I can no longer have mirth and merriment. So I don't care. I don't care. It's
officially not part of the convention, as Gary will tell you also. Gary and Doug would always say
talk to the hand. I'm done.
Officially not part of the convention. So we're not bringing down the industry by our chicanery during that god awful.
I do one skit and I'm banned, and I don't
forever. Yeah, banned forever. You've achieved godhood. Do you realize this? You came in like this. You went here and you just left here. I mean, you never had a chance. Look, every time we do this, Jim, I'm
you
going
don't
farther
know
down.
if you're on target unless you're taking flack.
I'm going. This is me when I started, and then I built up here. And now I'm headed down, and I know this, Jim. You left on top. You should be happy. I'm just dredging the depths now. It's straight down. Downbound train. That's gonna be. I should announce my retirement in year 20. That's what, 3 years from now. That's my retirement, because I'll be too old to do the shenanigans. It'll be time for some young creative mind to jump in there.
I have a tux, and I'm going to get the horns. That's it. You're used to the old Satan. I'd like you to meet the new Satan.
Meet the new boss. Same as the old boss. Oh boy.
Good God. Somewhere C.S. Lewis is roiling in his grave. Did you hear that yet another book of the Narnia series is being made into a movie for Netflix?
No.
And so the hot rumor is that they're going to do The Magician's Nephew as the first one.
Which is a good choice, probably.
Which is a great choice, because that's how, like, the person who introduced me to Narnia gave me The Magician's Nephew and said, read this one first. It makes more sense. And I'm like, huh? What? And that was how I got started on Narnia. And I dearly, dearly love the books. But apparently Magician's Nephew is what they're going to be filming and putting on Netflix. So.
All right, pretty cool.
It's going to be related to the books they already did, or that's totally different.
So my understanding is that they are just going to leave those alone and work around them, because truthfully, why go back and remake them?
No, you shouldn't. And that's the same problem I have, Jim, with origin stories. I'm so tired of fucking origin stories. And I'll say this as a huge comic book fan. I can live the rest of my life without seeing another Marvel Comics origin story. I don't care anymore. We know the origin. We don't want to see the origin. Just throw us into the action. Give us a good movie, and that's all we care about. My God, the obsession with the origin story drives me insane. Because
so the new Marvel movie's coming up, the new Captain America movie. And I'm torn, right? So I'm on the fence. I'm 51 one way and 49 the other. And my take on this is, I'm not super excited about this Marvel movie. Like they've been slow to get trailers out. I've known it's been coming for a while, but the hype hasn't started until recently. It's a red Hulk. It's Harrison Ford as the Hulk. However, a friend of mine told me an Anthony Mackie story that I'm not going to share, but told me a good story. Like, okay, good. And said, okay. I like this Anthony. This is one of the few unbelievably decent people in Hollywood.
I've heard the same thing, Jim. That's why when you said that, I was like, oh no.
And said, if there's one guy who deserves a hit Marvel movie, it's this guy. And so that's what's got me 51% of thinking to go see it in the theater. The other, I don't care. I don't care about whoever the new Falcon is. I don't care that Harrison Ford is red and angry. I just don't care. But Anthony Mackie is supposed to be such a decent human being that I want him to not have a clunker Marvel movie.
But here's what sucks, Jim, is that here's the scuttlebutt on this. They've reshot the ending not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 times. That is not the mark of a company that knows what they're doing with the movie. We're talking test audiences would walk out and go, brr, and so, okay, we need to reshoot the ending.
Wow.
1 month later, brr, okay, we need to shoot the 6 times they've reshot it. This is going to be one of the most expensive Marvel movies just because of the freaking reshoots. And that drives me crazy. The other thing is, growing up, little Mikey B, as this comic book, started reading comics. My first comic book I ever bought was Spider-Man 88. So 1972, I think, with the arms of Dr. Octopus.
Yes.
And he fought Dr. Octopus's arms in that one, not Doc Ock, because Doc Ock was mentally controlling him from miles away to have him come break him out of prison. Great stuff. And so I was hooked on comics forever after that. So my favorite superheroes were Spider-Man, Falcon. I love the Falcon. And Falcon and Captain America, because back then it was Captain America and the Falcon. The book for a while became Captain America Falcon. Black Panther. I had my first Black Panther appearance up there. And those are, I mean, and then pretty much anybody who's in the Avengers. I love the Avengers. So anybody in the Avengers. Those were my favorite heroes. So the Falcon, I love the Falcon. I love everything with the Falcon. I don't know if they messed up making the Falcon Captain America, but I wish they still had the Falcon. I like the Falcon because when it came down to it, he's just a dude that can fly, doesn't really have any special powers, but he just kicked ass.
So, so here's what I'll say. This is how I fix this in my head. Somehow Marvel got it right. They introduced Steve Rogers to Peggy, and they took Peggy away from Steve Rogers. And then we had Steve Rogers in some movies, and it was good, and he was Captain America. And I am ready to fight anybody who thinks he wasn't a good Steve Rogers.
Absolutely.
He was.
Right.
He was absolutely perfect. The scene at the end of the first Avenger where he runs out into Times Square and he is gut punched when he realizes what has happened. It's powerful stuff, right? And Marvel somehow stuck the landing. They gave us the happy ending. They gave us Steve winding up with Peggy, and you almost cry. You're so happy just because he got his happy ending. And if the price of Steve Rogers getting his happy ending, don't take that the wrong way. If the price of that wonderful bit of fan service is that Anthony Mackie, a character who we all got to know and love, like when they introduce him, the first time they introduce him, and Cap is just pacing him, running around
on your left, on your left.
And his indignation of I know, right? Like it's perfect. The business about the better man, all these wonderful little notes to his character. He's relatable. He is a veteran from the global war on terror. All this stuff that gives him.
He doesn't have superpowers. He's just wearing a mechanical
guy.
Wings. He's not a genius like Tony Stark. He's not. That's why I used to love that character. He's just a dude wearing wings, man.
But when you had Cap step off stage, if there's somebody who, I wouldn't be surprised if he's the guy that could also pick up the hammer, but Anthony Mackie's character is the guy that I'm willing to commit to. And I'm a guy, like, I watched the terrible, I didn't think the series was that good, but there was a great moment where he's in the costume and he says something to the effect of, do you have any idea what it's like being a black guy wearing this outfit? And there's a little bit of gravitas with that where you're like, okay, no shit. Well said. And so I'm hopeful. I really hope the movie is good.
I'll probably end up seeing it even if it's not good, just because, like I said, one of my favorite characters ever. But yeah, look, somehow Disney and Marvel Studios got off course. This whole fourth wave, fifth wave has just been an absolute freaking disaster. And hopefully they'll get back on course when they get the X-Men and the Fantastic Four up and running. But it's been an absolute disaster. And I think a lot of that was because they moved away from what they considered their core characters, which were Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the Avengers. And once they got into, we're going to talk about this guy. I mean, look, I love Doctor Strange as much as the other guy. Did he need 3 movies? I don't know. Ant-Man, did he need 2 movies? No. I mean, you're moving away. You're moving away out. Shang-Chi, I love Shang-Chi, but did he need a movie? He didn't need a movie.
Do me a favor. Throw me in front of Kevin Feige. Here's my elevator pitch. I want to do a standalone Marvel movie, and I want to do Alpha Flight, and I want to do John Byrne's original Alpha Flight. I want Guardian Vindicator. I want the
little midget guy. Yeah.
I want Polaris and North Star, and I want her to be crazy, just the same way she is in the book. I want Sasquatch. I want it all. Just give me a chance to take like all these great Canadian actors and make an Alpha Flight. And it can be a standalone. You can tie it into the X-Men if you want or whatever, but just give me a chance to make an Alpha Flight movie that would make John Byrne happy before he dies. And I think it would be so much fun, right? It really, really, really would. Because I guarantee you there isn't a Canadian alive that wouldn't go see that movie if you just stay true to the character's roots.
And look,
Puck.
Puck, that was it. Yeah, but here's the problem: is that I think now they're looking at the day has passed when they said we're going to do a Guardians of the Galaxy movie. And everybody's like, what? And everybody thought, what a failure. No, nobody cares about the Guardians of the Galaxy. Gunn stuck the landing on that one.
Oh my God! And nobody saw it coming.
So you have to have somebody that could look outside the box and say, okay, yeah, I know what you're thinking. Alpha Flight, yeah, I know. But here's what we're going to do, and it's going to be awesome. And that's who you need. You need somebody that likes comics, respects comics like Gunn does. Gunn's faults. He is a comic guy. He knows characters. He just knows. He knows comics. There's not a lot of directors and writers out there in Hollywood that know the characters. I think you could do any character really if you had the right script and the right writer and the people who take the character seriously. I'm a huge fan. I don't have them here. I have the hardback giant omnibus for Kung Fu. One of my favorite series when I was a kid. There's 4 giant. The guy we saw on the movie screen was not Shang-Chi Master of Kung Fu. That was something that Marvel made up for the movie. And so while I watched the movie, I'm just like, yeah, as a fan of the character, it doesn't do anything for me. This isn't the character that I grew up with and loved. And then Aquafina was his sidekick. It was just, awful. But that's, I think, one of the problems we have with the last 2 stages is that you have a lot of people just throwing stuff against the wall to see what's going to stick. I mean, I love to see Jeremy Renner as Hawkeye, but the series was okay. It wasn't anything special. I mean, and that's the problem I think now is we're not seeing these, okay, that was must see. When the Marvel movies first came out, they were must see.
Right.
It's like, oh my gosh, it was so good. Avengers movie, it was everything a comics fan could have hoped for in an Avengers movie. You know what I'm saying? I mean, just everything is there. Here's all my favorite characters. They're taking it seriously. Here's Loki. He's the bad guy. I mean, just everything just perfectly aligned ahead. And I don't know what happened, but they've got to get back there where everything is just like, okay, here's what we're going to do. They have a chance. Fantastic Four, man. I have no faith in Disney anymore. Zero faith. Zero. This is where my faith is. Because you know why? Because we've had the Acolyte. We've had some really terrible Marvel. We've had the last 5 Marvel movies have made less money than any Marvel movie ever. I mean, it's getting into the negatives practically. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're off topic here or not, but it just hurts me. It hurts me because they did such a good job the first 10 years. They did such a great job, and now they're just, I don't know what's going on there. I just don't know what's happening. I don't know who pitched Captain Marvel, but I couldn't even watch it. The parts of the trailer. If the trailer turns me off, I'm not watching your movie. And the trailer, I'm like, man, I don't think I have to.
They have to give you a reason.
Yes, I don't think I have to see things.
And if the trailer is terrible, you're not going to go. You're just not going to go, and that's it.
I hope they look. I'm cautiously out next year. I think I told you the story that's what my granddaughter wants for her birthday present, which I'm super excited that she's finally into comics now. The one kid and grandkid that's finally into my gigantic 15,000 comic book collection is my granddaughter. So she gets everything. I told you I gave her my whole Birds of Prey collection because it had gotten slightly water damaged. All 136 issues because she gets, you like comics, I'm going to give you comics. So and so I said, what do you want for my birthday? She said, I want to go see Superman. I'm like, okay, I'll bring you to see Superman. Then I'm sitting there going, please be good. Please be good. Please be good. Don't be bad. So I don't know. We'll see what happens, but I love they can't just be garbage. They've got to be good movies.
Right.
They've got to treat the character respect. They've got to be interesting more than just crazy special effects. And I think I told you guys about my wife was in Colombia last year for a month. I got a free disc every Marvel TV series and movie that I had missed. And boom, 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 boom. Everything was just like, what are they doing? And suffered through the second Ant-Man movie. I suffered through the She-Hulk TV series. I mean, I'm just watching this going, who is this for? I don't understand who this stuff's for. Sorry, I'm going on a rant here, but it just
Oh no,
it
I
upsets
ranted
me in my
early.
soul.
Feel free to rant late.
No, it just upsets me in my soul. They're doing this bad a job with these characters, and don't even get me started on what's being done with DC's characters. I won't even go into. I mean, hopefully, Gunn can bring that back from the abyss, because what they've done for them is just appalling. I did like the last Batman movie, which is a very interesting take on the character, but apparently they're not going to continue with it. So it was a one and done, like most DC movies.
There's a sequel to Batman coming. There's a sequel to Batman
coming.
there
is with the same what's his name? Did
Spark
a great
did
a good job.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, did a great job.
So
and people were saying, "Oh, he's going to be terrible." Like, oh, I don't think he's going to be terrible. He wasn't. He was not terrible at all.
So, well, we're over, but who cares?
Really good.
Yeah. I think Kim was telling us we're over. She's like, good show, guys.
Oh, that's good. When we're over, we're passionate about what we're doing. Unlike Disney about.
Unlike the sniveling shit weasels of the world.
Yes, unlike the sniveling clickbaiters also. So yes, we're live, and sometimes when you're live, you get on tangents and you go on rants.
Fugly, we forgive you.
That's right.
We forgive you.
We always forgive.
Yeah, you're allowed to have bad, wrong fun. We will grant
no, Fugly's awesome.
And Penguin is very good.
Oh yeah, Penguin I heard was great. I can't wait to see that. I got to see that, man. Looks great.
So, I think we will wrap it like a present. Maybe not like a present.
Next week, Jeffrey Jones, and
we're trying to get the Spawn on, but I don't know how the schedule is working. So we're working on it.
Yeah, we're working on John. If he does come on, he'll be 8 o'clock. He won't be able to come on the first hour. Up in about 8 or so. So we're trying to work on James. We'll eventually have Kim. I'll talk to Kim this weekend. I get to see Kim in person. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Pixie is coming to Dallas, man. So we'll talk to Kim about when she wants to come on to talk about her Kickstarter stuff, and we also I got in contact with Kelsey about it because her Kickstarter is coming up in March. I think it's gonna be amazing. So I want to get her on before March or in March. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. Folks, remember there's going to be a new semi-regular time. The day may change around depending on how real life is, but tomorrow at 1 p.m. Eastern, there will be a short live stream. When I say short, not 2.5 hours, but, it will be a live stream tomorrow for those of you across the pond or across the other side of the world. Other than that, Mike has nothing to pimp. Jim has nothing to pimp.
Hey, Kurt, thanks for coming on last week. I had an
absolute a good time with Kurt.
Oh, anytime you want to come back on, buddy, you are absolutely welcome to come back on. We had a ball. It's great.
And we'll have to pencil Dell in the coming week. Definitely. All right, folks. As always, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. Tomorrow at 1 and 8 live streams. Oh my God! You think I actually enjoy